Well, occasionally I decide to give a health message. I have talked to some pastors who don't think that should be in the divine service. But that only tells me that they don't know the value of good health. Because our spiritual life depends upon our health. And therefore, it's a very sacred topic to consider our health. So I've entitled this, The Value of Walking. Now, I haven't always been a strong supporter of walking because I thought that I could get all the exercise I needed in the garden. And I usually spend many hours a week in the garden. But about a year ago, I started having a struggle with high blood pressure. And I had been gardening, but still I was having a problem. Well, fortunately, my wife had had a problem with high blood pressure previous to that. And so she had found a natural means of getting rid of it. And so I was able to follow the same plan. And the major item is walking. And mine has come down. It doesn't stay down fully where I'd like it yet, but it is getting there. And so as I thought about it, in agricultural work, there's some of the activities that are severe enough to do what walking would do. But there's periods of the year when it's not. Like Friday, my job was picking raspberries. Well, that doesn't do much for your exercise program. And so I began to realize that the older we get, the more critical it becomes that we do some walking. And so we're going to take a look at this today. If you really think about it, Adam and Eve were created to walk. They weren't given a horse to ride or a car to drive, but wherever they went, they had to walk. And apparently it wasn't only them. God walks as well. Genesis 3:8, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. So it sounds like, as a regular practice, they took a walk with God and He would instruct them on their walk. And so God walks, and we can assume Adam and Eve walked. It doesn't actually say that word. In Deuteronomy 6, verse 7, we see that God's plan for Israel included walking. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children when thou walkest by the way. Well, when they went out to the field to work, they had to walk. And 3 times a year, they were to go down to Jerusalem, and some of them lived a long ways away. So they had to walk to get there. Maybe some of them rode, but not everybody could afford it, so there was a lot of walking. The first time the Bible mentions somebody riding, at least as I could remember it, if you know an earlier text, I'd be interested, was in Genesis 24, in the chapter about Isaac getting a wife. It says in verse 10, and the servant took 10 camels of the camels of his master and departed. You know the rest of the story he was going to get a wife by who would be willing to water those 10 camels. And Rebekah, verse 64, lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel. So apparently she'd been riding on the camel, coming from her home to become the wife of Isaac. But before that, I don't remember reading anybody riding. So it sounds like the program that God established for the human race was a program that had to do with a lot of walking. Well, I think you'd all agree we've gotten a long ways away from that today. And people will ride in their car even if they're going a tenth of a mile or less. They get in their car and they ride. And so we've gotten rid of almost all the walking, at least the outdoor walking for sure. We do some walking in the house. But I think it's time for us to consider our beginnings. And then I noticed this in Matthew 4:18. When Jesus came to this earth to be our example, and Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. So how did Jesus get to where they were? He walked. And he did a lot of walking. Here's another example in Luke 24, verse 15 and then 32. And it came to pass that while they communed together, as the two men on the way to Emmaus, and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. So, as they were walking home from Jerusalem, which I didn't have time to look up the distance, but it was a few miles, I believe, all of a sudden Jesus showed up walking, and he walked beside them the rest of the way. And then in verse 32, and they said one to another, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures?" So as Jesus walked with them, he did the same thing that God did with Adam and Eve. He talked to them about the Bible and explained the scriptures that pointed to his death. And so we see that Jesus did a lot of walking while he was here on earth. I found this manuscript, 138, 1899. Christ blended his teaching with physical toil, walking from place to place. So he blended his teaching with walking, and it's called physical toil here, and instructing as he walked. He had neither horse, carriage, nor bicycle, which are so much used today. Interesting. Now that I don't take this to mean you never should be in an automobile or never ride a bicycle. Or, someday if things don't change, we may be back to riding the horse. But there is evidence here that Jesus was healthy because of all the walking that he did. And if we want to be healthy, we need to do quite a bit of walking as well. In Counsels to the Church, page 235, it says, more than 40 years ago, in other words, in 1863, but now we'd have to update that. We'd have to say more than 159 years now, the Lord gave us special light on health reform. But how are we walking in that light? So, you know, we were supposed to be the most healthy people on planet Earth. And there's many facets to it, but we're going to look especially at walking this morning because it's a bigger benefit than what I think most of us realize. How many have refused to live in harmony with the counsels of God? I'm sure you don't want to be one of those. As a people, we should make advancement proportionate to the light received. It is our duty to understand and respect the principles of health reform. And this morning, that includes walking. That we need to have a walking program. Now, one of the reasons I didn't want to do walking just to be walking, and you know, to get to my destiny, it was too long a time to walk, so I wanted to ride. And I always felt, okay, I get plenty of exercise in the garden, so it's okay to do this. But I found out different. I had to change my philosophy. The benefits of walking cannot be obtained in, I wouldn't say no other way, they can't be obtained, but it would take, you know, like splitting wood, or digging with the shovel, or hoeing for an extended period of time. It would take quite a bit of actual physical exercise to end up doing what walking can do. And so we have a responsibility to demonstrate to the world the benefit of this. Healthful Living, page 130, by the way, this book was put together. Of course, it was a compilation from the writings of Ellen White, but it was put together by a group of medical students who were fearful that some of what they would teach in the medical school would corrupt their thinking. And so they studied and they put together information about various ways that we can stay healthy or be healed through the methods that God has given. So this comes from that. Morning exercise and walking in the free, invigorating air of heaven is necessary to a healthful circulation of the blood. Now notice what time of day. In the morning. Morning exercise is better than any other time of exercise. Now, it's better in the afternoon or evening than not at all, but morning is the best. Dr. Burnell used to tell us that over and over again. Morning is the time to exercise. And notice one of the benefits, it causes a healthful circulation of the blood. Now, in another health talk I gave, I read the quote where it said that our health depends upon our blood circulation. Perfect health comes from perfect circulation. So if there's anything that damages the circulation, we can't be in perfect health. And walking is one of the key things to give us that perfect circulation. It is the surest safeguard against colds. Oh, they've struck already. Colds. As soon as we come to around October, you can count on colds and flu. It is the surest safeguard against colds, coughs, congestions of the brain and lungs, inflammation of the liver, the kidneys, and the lungs, and 100 other diseases. Wow. You know, if we don't take advantage of that, we're really destroying ourselves. What else could you do that would accomplish so much? Just one thing. And it accomplishes all of that. Another one from Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, page 100. Walking is often more beneficial to health than all the medicine that can be prescribed. Well, my wife's blood pressure kind of got us all scared. I think even the doctor got scared in the beginning. So he prescribed some medicine. But the medicine that was first given was not the kind you want to take all the time. You took it when the blood pressure got up around 200 or more. And so she started out that way, and then another doctor put her on another medicine, and there was trouble. Once we went to the emergency room due to the way the heart was acting, and so on. And so several medicines, but by then she'd been walking, and she got off of all the medicines and got the blood pressure down with the program. And so we can vouch that this is true. And you know, I was tempted to think about medicine in the beginning, but I said, no, she got it under control without medicine, so I'm going to try. Walking is often more beneficial to health than all the medicine that can be prescribed. For those who can endure it, walking is preferable to riding, for it brings all the muscles into exercise. Now there's something very interesting. What other activity is there that brings all the muscles into exercise? Swimming. Okay, swimming maybe. The lungs also are forced into healthy action, since it is impossible to walk in the bracing air of winter morning without inflating them. So here we see a little evidence that it doesn't matter about the weather. We should walk anyway, even in the cold. In fact, if we want to keep away from colds and flu bugs and so on, we have to do it in the winter of all times. It needs to be really done. I found that in the summertime, I didn't have much trouble keeping my blood pressure down. But as the colder weather came along, that's when the problem started. So it's very important to walk, and I may keep it up all year next time to make sure I'm ready for the winter time when it comes. Counsels on Health, page 200. Walking in all cases where it is possible is the best remedy for diseased bodies, because in this exercise, all the organs of the body are brought into use. Isn't it amazing what happens simply with walking? Now, when you walk, you want some hills involved. You don't want to just walk on the flat. But if you walk, all the muscles are involved, all the organs of the body are involved, and therefore it's helping every system that we have. It's improving it. And if it's diseased, it's taking away the disease. If it's not diseased, it's keeping it healthy. In some cases, want of exercise causes the bowels and the muscles to become enfeebled and shrunken. And these organs that have become enfeebled for want of use will be strengthened by exercise. You know, sometimes people's organs just quit working. I wonder if they had enough exercise, if it wouldn't stop working, that it would keep on working. there is no exercise that can take the place of walking. Well, I had to give up my idea of agriculture replacing walking, because it says there is no exercise that can take the place of walking. By it, the circulation of the blood is greatly improved. And what it seems to us from our experience is that it opens up those blood vessels so that the blood pressure can go down by the walking. Again, Healthful Living, page 130. There is no excuse that will prove as beneficial to every part of the body as walking. Active walking in the open air will do more for women to preserve them in health if they are well than any other means. Walking is also one of the most efficient remedies for the recovery of health of the invalid. So we don't want to use the excuse that, well, I don't feel well, so I'm not going to walk. If you're so bad off that you can't walk, then yes, you'll have to try to get well some other way. But if you can possibly get out there and walk, you should walk. Walking is also one of the most efficient remedies for the recovery of health of the invalid. Now, when the word invalid is used, you're talking about somebody that feels very limited in what they can do. And so they refrain from walking. The hands and arms are exercised as well as the limbs, because everything gets exercised. Here's another one for those that may have some stomach difficulties. Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, page 101. Exercise aids the dyspeptic by giving the digestive organs a healthy tone. So if you have difficulty digesting, or you have pain or whatever, to engage in deep, steady, or violent exercise immediately after eating hinders the digestive process. For the vitality of the system, which is needed to carry on the work of digestion, is called away to other parts. So when it says here the vitality is talking about blood, the blood goes to where the need is, and if we already have a need for it to help digestion take place, we don't want to be pulling too much of it away from the digestion. So we don't want to do intensive steady or a forced march of walking. But it says, but a short walk after a meal with the head erect and the shoulders back, exercising moderately, is a great benefit. The mind is diverted from self to the beauties of nature. So if our stomach is giving us some trouble, the worst thing you can do is be thinking about the trouble that your stomach is causing you. And so when you get out and walk, and a mild walk, you forget about that because you see a lot of things. And what a blessing it is to be attracted to the birds and the squirrels and all the activity out there in nature. Raccoons we heard about. The less the attention is called to the stomach, the better. And that's true of any sickness. The more we can forget about our sickness and be out walking or doing something that takes our mind off, the quicker it's going to heal. There used to be a journal called The Health Reformer, and this comes from July 1, 1868. Females neglect to exercise their limbs in walking. I think women do better today perhaps than they did back then, but still there's a danger to not walk enough. Riding cannot take the place of walking. Many that are very feeble can walk if they only think so. Now this is addressing the people that think they can't walk. They have not the disposition, and you will hear them plead, "Oh, I cannot walk. It puts me out of breath. I have a pain in my side, a pain in my back." So is the answer, don't walk? Dear sisters, I wish you did not have these infirmities, but I know that yielding to them and giving up to an inactive life will not free you from them. So if that woman or man, if he had the same problem, says, "Well, I can't walk because it hurts," well, then you're going to keep on hurting. So the answer is, let it hurt for a while until it goes away. It goes on to say this: try to exercise moderately at first. Have rules to govern you. Walk. Yes, walk. If you possibly can, walk. Try it a short distance at first. You that think walking is impossible, you will no doubt become weary. Your side may ache, your back give you pain, but this should not frighten you. Your limbs may feel weak, and no wonder when you have not used them much more than as if you had no limbs. If you would only walk and possess a perseverance in the matter, you could accomplish much in the direction of recovery. Your sleep would be sweeter. At every trial, go a little farther. So you start out short, and then you keep trying to lengthen it. I was remembering a man that came to Wildwood many years ago. He was a heavy smoker, and he couldn't even walk across the parlor without getting out of breath. But, of course, he quit smoking, and he got a walking program, and he got to where he could walk for 5 miles. So what we're told in this quotation is really true, and people have experienced it who couldn't walk, but they persevered with walking, graduating a little more and a little more until they could walk a long distance. Counsels on Health, page 200. Those who are feeble and indolent, puts both of those in the same. Hopefully nobody here is lazy, and that's the reason you're not walking. Those who are feeble and indolent should not yield to their inclination to be inactive, thus depriving themselves of air and sunlight, but should practice exercising out of doors in walking or working in the garden. They will become very much fatigued, but this will not injure them. It is not good policy to give up the use of certain muscles because pain is felt when they are exercised. And it goes on to say, the pain is frequently caused by the effort of nature to give life and vigor to those parts that have become partially lifeless through inaction. When we don't exercise some part of the body, the little capillaries, very small passageways for the blood become closed off. And then when you start an exercise program, it forces the blood through those places, and that causes pain. But if you keep at it, the pain goes away. The motion of these long disused muscles will cause pain because nature is awakening them to life. So we're in danger of interpreting it the opposite way from what we should. And we are hurting ourselves for the future. Now, just to review, what are the primary reasons? I found 7 in what we just went through. 7 reasons why walking should be done if you're able to do it. If you can't, God understands. Number 1, it gives good circulation of the blood. Number 2, it will protect you from over 100 diseases. Number 3, it will heal you better than medicine can do. Now, it's not saying you never should take any medicine. There's times when that has to be done, but it still is going to help you take less medicine if it doesn't eliminate the medicine. Number 4, exercises all of our muscles. Interesting. Every single muscle in the body is active during walking. Number 5, it improves the action of our lungs. I'll share one other result that has taken place. After I'd been walking for a while, I noticed that I could get off my bronchodilator. And so I've been on that for 40 years. But I got off of it I've been off of it now probably about 4 or 5 months. And I don't know whether I'll be able to get off of the steroid, but at least I got off of one medication, besides bringing the blood pressure more in line. The what? No, I still have to take that once a day, but I probably won't do it this winter, but I may experiment next summer with trying to wean off and see if that will work. Number 6, all organs of our body are active. So every muscle's involved, every organ of the body's involved. I've had some of my organs that can benefit from that. And number 7, it assists to have better sleep. So with all those benefits, I think it's smart for me to walk, don't you?
Yeah.
Even if I can't do as much in the garden, because it takes almost an hour a day, 45 minutes to an hour. We try to walk 2 miles in the morning. And yet, with all those benefits, as I studied for this, I said, well, I am going to keep up the walking program. May God bless each of you as you try to receive the benefits, not letting any excuse keep you away from it, except those that just can't do it, and find a way that you can get those benefits because they will pay off in the long run.